Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following the latest gaming hardware. I'm Damon Hatfield, and as always, I'm joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of Podcast Unlocked, and Max Scoville, host of Podcast Beyond. And you'll remember that last year, Xbox increased the price of Game Pass by 50% to a whopping $30 a month or $360 a year. Many of us decided that what was once seen as the best deal in gaming had become way too expensive, and apparently, the new CEO of Xbox agrees. So, Asha Sharma, in a leaked memo, I think spotted by The Verge, said that Game Pass has become too expensive for players. Game Pass is central to gaming value on Xbox. It's also clear that the current model isn't the final one. Short term, Game Pass has become too expensive, so we need a better value equation. Long term, we will evolve Game Pass into a more flexible system, which will take time to test and learn around. So, Ryan, they have a short term and a long term goal. It sounds like in the short term, we should expect the price to come down. But in the long term, they're talking about a flexible system, which is something that you've talked about on this show in the past. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I sure hope she's being direct there. I mean, it is an internal memo that was not meant for external publication. Although I think anytime an executive writes one of those company memos, they know it's probably going to get out.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the point. Maybe she wanted it leaked out for all we know. But the point is, if she's effectively publicly, even though this was, again, an internal thing, but for all intents and purposes, publicly saying that Game Pass is too expensive, I mean, that's a great start because, if you're the new boss coming in, you have the power to make change, but, I mean, dropping the price, Damon, can you, or Max, can either of you guys think of any major streaming service in gaming or entertainment that's actually meaningful, like drop the price at all? Like I don't think I can think of an example.
No, I don't think I can. Sometimes there are sales or promotions, but not a permanent price decrease, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm on a $5 a month Disney Plus 3-month thing right now just to watch Daredevil. But yeah, so if she clearly has the power to drop the price. I mean, ultimately she answers to Satya Nadella and shareholders, but if she's been empowered to do what she thinks she needs to do, and she clearly seems willing to drop the price, that would be tremendous. I mean, the question then becomes, okay, how far? Like, is it too much to think that it might go all the way back down to where it was at $20? I don't know if I'm quite that optimistic, but I do think 25, that's at least, it's going to go down to at least 25, which maybe, that might still be too rich for some people's blood, and I would totally get that. Maybe 22, 21, but I'm crossing my fingers for 20, that she might just go all the way and just put this back where it was, because boy, would that win fans back over. I mean, yes, it's just righting a wrong, but it's still doing the right thing, even if the wrong thing should never have been done in the first place.
Max, PlayStation Plus Premium is $18 a month, $160 a year. Do you think that's a level that Xbox can't afford to get down to as long as it's providing day one new releases like PlayStation does not?
Definitely. I mean, I think the problem with what Game Pass did, and this is not a problem, this is a great thing, that's what made it a wonderful deal, is that it's too good of a deal. It came out the gate. Like day one games as part of a subscription platform seems absolutely bonkers, and I feel like it's kind of in the same category as the Series S, which was a super affordable next gen console that then turned out to be a little bit underpowered to try to maintain parity with the Big Brother console. It's a great idea in theory, but then suddenly you got to face the realities of it. In the case of Game Pass, it's you're promising people big huge AAA games day one, and that's great for us. That's a great deal for consumers. But it from the jump, it never seemed like it could be particularly sustainable or profitable. And meanwhile, Sony's just been kind of sitting over on this side. They a couple of years back kind of retooled their PlayStation Plus tiers and made them so there was the premium and then extra and then basic or
essential. I think right.
Essential. There we go. And essential is essentially just what PlayStation Plus was when it first launched, which was you're paying to have online access for multiplayer stuff. But then you also get with extra and premium, you get a bunch of games every month. You get access to a library of games, but the difference is they're not brand new games. They're games that are a few months old, or a couple of years old. Even the most recent ones, for instance, dropping this month. PS5 players get Horizon Zero Dawn remastered, and if you're still on PS4, you just get the complete edition. And that's still a big, huge, expensive AAA game, but it's one that they've definitely recouped their, or anyone who's going to buy it has probably already bought it by now. So anybody they're attracting at that point is just, probably curious, or they're a subscriber. It's kind of easy to forget at this point, but like PlayStation Plus they're kind of in on the ground floor about this. This was the first real subscription service that gave you games along with whatever else it was providing, and it began as basically an answer to Xbox Live. What was it? Xbox Live Gold. Like it was, PS3 multiplayer was pretty much free for a while, and then they were like, well, we're going to start charging for that, but we'll give you some free games here and there. And occasionally you would get brand new games, like Rocket League and the original Helldivers were both PlayStation Plus games day and date, and that was a really cool little perk. And fast forward a decade or whatever it's been, and Microsoft is going, well, maybe it wasn't really a great idea to make Call of Duty, the historically best-selling game in almost any given year, a free thing that comes with your subscription. So yeah, I mean, Sony doesn't need to do anything at this point. They can kind of sit there.
By the way, Max, I think games with gold might predate anything. I feel like games with gold thing might have been the first one, but I guess we'll Wikipedia that later and see who came first.
It's hard to even remember. Yeah, games with gold. So Ryan, if they're going to drop the price of Game Pass less than a month after they hiked it by 50%, what do you think would be the smartest way to message that?
Well, less than a year, I think you meant there.
Oh, sorry, less than a year. Less than a year, yes.
Yeah, I wish it was less than a month, then it would have already gone down. But, well, I mean, there was another report, which I think I'm not sure if you were going to get to this, Damon. I think so. There's a report from our friends at Windows Central that Microsoft is considering taking Call of Duty, the new Call of Duty, out of Game Pass entirely, meaning if you have a Game Pass Ultimate subscription, you will not have access to whatever the new Call of Duty game in 2026 is. And, well, that you put two and two together there. If Asha's publicly talking about dropping the price, and there's this report about taking Call of Duty out, well, that seems like those two things go together, and that's how Microsoft can get away, can basically pay for this, is they're gonna sell a whole bunch more copies of Call of Duty, to Max's point, and hopefully get a lot more people back on board for Game Pass Ultimate. So the 2 and 2 makes sense, and I hope they do it because it would be the more gamer-friendly thing to do. Now, again, it sort of depends on how far they drop the price on Ultimate. Is it ultimately going to net out? Would it net out cheaper, even if you're buying Call of Duty every year for, I guess, $70? Is it still are you still going to come out ahead? I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Call of Duty situation is interesting because we know that last year's did not perform as well as it normally does. It was actually outsold by several games in 2025. Battlefield 6, NBA 2K26, Borderlands 4, and Monster Hunter Wilds all outsold Call of Duty Black Ops 7. And remember, just a few years ago, it was a big deal that Hogwarts Legacy outsold Call of Duty because in like the past 14, 15 years, it's been the best-selling game. Here, it's outsold by 4 games. So you could look at it two ways. I mean, maybe a lot of those potential sales were actually enjoyed by Game Pass subscribers, but I don't know. I think that's a little unlikely. I think it's a little bit more likely. And Max, I want to get your thoughts on this. I think maybe Activision or Xbox acquired Activision just a little bit past Call of Duty's peak. Maybe they put it in the Game Pass, and maybe Call of Duty just isn't the draw to Game Pass that it might have once been. What do you think?
Definitely. It was interesting to see Battlefield 6 eating its lunch this year, but yeah, I mean, Call of Duty's been in the weird spot where it's always been an annualized franchise, but more recently it's, with the advent of live service games, which are just sort of, you have one game that just sort of stays on and gets ready updates. People kind of gravitate towards that. And Warzone is exactly that, and people kind of, I think feel less inclined to shell out 60 or $70 every November for the latest version, whatever it is. And clearly it still sells okay, but it's just, I think the most recent one was maybe too little too late, and the Game Pass thing is just kind of confounding it or compounding it.
Ryan, what do you think? Is maybe the Activision and Call of Duty wasn't as profitable a purchase as maybe Xbox was hoping? Now, that's not to mention they've got like King, which is
the mobile thing.
Yeah, they got the mobile thing. But maybe, go ahead.
It's tough from where we sit on the outside in the sense that I've probably said in some magazine or IGN that, that was the peak of Call of Duty. It's never going to be higher. Like, that franchise continues to live on. I mean, back in the 360 day, like original Xbox, PS2, and then 360, PS3 days, Activision was pretty well known for just running franchises into the ground by just putting out iteration after iteration. They did it to Tony Hawk. They did it to Guitar Hero. You can name more examples. And Call of Duty has been annualized for, gosh, we're coming up on 20 years at this point. In fact, maybe, but because 2005 was Call of Duty 2, and then we might have just hit 20 years of annualized Call of Duty releases. But anyway, I would be a little reluctant to say the peak has passed, only because this franchise seems to endure. But yeah, I mean, I certainly think that barring a big comeback this year, it's probably been a little disappointing of a moneymaker to Microsoft, and I'm sure that's in part what's driving. I think the Game Pass thing is intrinsically tied up in this, but yeah, it's not a far-fetched theory to throw out that maybe the expectation that they had when they spent $69 billion to get Activision, Blizzard, and King is maybe not quite being fully realized on the Activision side of things.
So what's crazy to me is that this, as a subscription service, it's just so aggressively trying to get people's attention with this amazing deal of like, hey, here is the best-selling video game franchise, or one of them, and you get the brand new one for no extra cost as long as you pay the subscription fee. That is, I mean, that sounds too good to be true, but it actually was true, and that it seems like it kind of backfired. Like, look at any major streaming service for Disney Plus or HBO Max or whatever you call it. If they had come out and been like, hey, all of our theatrical releases will be there on the streaming platform as well day one, what would that do to ticket sales? What would that, and I think gaming is obviously a different medium, but it seems like kind of a no-brainer just to be like, well, I could shell out $70, or I could pay 15 or 20 or whatever. I mean, now it's 30, but
and Game Pass it's gotten a lot. I would imagine that when Game Pass was conceived in it launched in 2017. So when Microsoft was cooking this up, they, even then, as big a corporation as Microsoft's always been, they probably didn't envision Game Pass existing in a world where Microsoft was swallowing entire giant publishers.
Yes, that's a really
like
good
Bethesda,
point.
like Activision, with Blizzard and with King in there. And so that, I mean, it's got to complicate the economics of Game Pass to an absurd degree, which Call of Duty is kind of that's where this is all the focal point of this is now. And so, yeah, it started as a $10 per month service.
Right.
With all the day one games, except back then there were no games. That was during the dry period that we were just starving for a drop of water in the desert as Xbox gamers. And now, to their credit, they've got a ton of first party games, both under the Xbox banner, but also Activision, Blizzard, as well. So when Asha talks about the first part, or the other part of her quote that you mentioned, Damon, from the memo about long-term making it more flexible, it's probably got something to do with that, of sort of reconciling the fact that Xbox is this umbrella now, rather than just a publisher with its own studios. It's this umbrella under which Activision, Blizzard, King, and Bethesda all live. So we'll see what she means by that long term. I selfishly hope, wishful thinking, that it means they're going to take my idea from what I talked about on here, 6 months ago when the price went up, that they'll implement that sort of Nintendo Audible like voucher system where, at that middle $15 a month tier, maybe that price will go down too, where you'll be able to rack up some credits to redeem an occasional day one download, even at the mid-tier subscription. So we'll see. But I do appreciate that she seems not afraid to take this stuff head on rather than risk the ire of the shareholders by, again, doing something that none of us can think has ever happened, which is a major streaming service of any kind lowering its price.
Yeah. You make a lot of really good points there. I love the voucher idea. Someone in the comments on the IGN article here said they'd love to just get an indie game tier to Game Pass. Maybe that could be
it's a great idea.
$10 to $15 just for the indie games. I personally like that idea. How does that sit with you, Max?
That sounds cool. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I really appreciate Game Pass for the most, is just checking out some game I never would have played otherwise, and occasionally it hooks me. But I wasn't about to spend $10 or $15 to find out and buy it.
Yeah.
Wholesale. But also demos. It would be nice if we got those sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so considering all this, Ryan, can you envision a post Game Pass Xbox? Probably not, done away with entirely because its competitors have their own subscription services. But can you envision a heavily de-emphasized Game Pass where they're focusing more on the traditional way of doing business, which is just selling video games?
No.
Okay.
This is that they're in too deep now. They can't walk away from this. Like Asha may rue the previous administration in a polite and respectful way for sort of baking in the day one games from the very inception of this service, but you can't change that. You can't walk away from that. I mean, okay, Call of Duty may be an exception, but you can't walk away from that, and certainly they're not going to walk away from Game Pass unless it's just an absolute money sinkhole, which they probably would have shut it down by now if that was actually the case, for as much as the outside gaming world like us and some publishers kind of wonder aloud, like, hey, how can this be making money? But yeah, I don't think I think Game Pass will be synonymous with Xbox for as long as Xbox exists.
And that's kind of the legacy of Phil Spencer, isn't it?
Well, it's part of it. I think for me, the Activision Blizzard, when the $69 billion mega acquisition, biggest in the history of the games industry, that has clearly it was a point of no return for Microsoft, right? One way or the other. It made them much, much bigger than ever before, but it's also caused plenty of issues too. So I think that's the number one thing on the Phil Spencer list when we look back on his administration. But Game Pass is probably, Damon, a strong number two. And then, as I'd pointed out when he retired, I did a whole piece on this for IGN. He did a ton of great stuff that will not be forgotten as well, like normalizing crossplay and normalizing backwards compatibility, not just on Xbox, but across the entire industry. Accessibility took a lot of steps forward. So, but yeah, in terms of how Phil Spencer's era will be remembered, Game Pass is right there along with that mega acquisition.
Well, based on these, this leaked memo from Asha Sharma, it sounds like we should expect some kind of Xbox Game Pass price drop in the not too distant future. It'll be very interesting to see how they handle that messaging, and it'll be something interesting for us to talk about on future episodes.
Well, Damon, we're less than 2 months away from the big Xbox showcase, the biggest event of the Xbox year. So if you were going to announce a substantial price cut to Game Pass, that would probably be the place I would expect it to happen.
Yep, that would be a good opportunity to do such a thing. Okay, we've got a poll for you to vote on for next week. We want to know, what April big game release will you be playing? Mouse PI for Hire, Pragmata, Windrose, Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream, Replaced, or I'll wait, or maybe you'll just wait for the big May games, which, there's Batman and 007 coming out there. Ryan, I started playing Replaced last night. Could you give us just sort of your I know this has been a game that you've been anticipating for a long time. Can you sort of share your first impressions real quick?
Oh yeah, no, I'm in chapter 5, so I'm still working my way through it as well, and I'm having a blast with it so far. It's a little bit of a slow build at the start, but just the atmosphere. I mean, it's if you see it, you can see at least like, oh wow, this is a visually distinct and stunning game. But I'm having a really good time with it so far, and it's it's $20. So if you're not doing the $30 a month Game Pass Ultimate sub, grab it on Xbox for $20, grab it on Steam for $20. The IGN review is not up yet because we got the game pretty late, but I know that's in the works. But it's been reviewing well elsewhere. I think it's at about an 80 on Metacritic. So yeah, I'm definitely enjoying it. And then when I finish that, I'm going to be diving back into Mouse PI for Hire, which I'm a couple missions into.
Nice. Max, have you played Mouse or Pragmata?
I've been playing both of those right now. Very, very different ways of shooting things. Both very fun. Pragmata is grabbing me way more than I was expecting. Yeah, it's just a very, very solid, good old fashioned video game.
Yeah,
and yeah,
I mean, I'm coming off 2 playthroughs of Resident Evil Requiem, so I'm excited to jump into Pragmata. Man, Capcom is just firing on all cylinders in the past few years. So anyway, we want to know which game you're most looking forward to playing. Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live. You can also vote on Spotify, and we'll share the results with you next episode, just like we can with last week's poll. Which classic Zelda game do you most want a remake of? And perhaps surprisingly, it's the one that there is the biggest rumor of. That would be Ocarina of Time. That'd be followed by Link to the Past, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Oracle of Ages / Seasons, and then poor Skyward Sword. Only 1.5% were hoping for a remake of that one. Understandably so, I think. Okay, IGN Live. We're talking about that big Xbox showcase coming up in June. That's right around the same time as IGN Live 2026. Tickets are officially on sale. It's a 2-day celebration of gaming and entertainment that will take place on June 6th and 7th, downtown LA. It'll be filled with celebrity panels, exclusive game reveals, live stage shows, giveaways, and much more. Early bird tickets are on sale now on ShowClix, and fans can purchase 1-day tickets for $15 or a weekend pass for $30. And that's our show. Thank you to both Ryan and Max. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Damon. We'll be back next week with more of the latest gaming hardware news. We'll see you then. This episode of Next Gen Console Watch was produced by Damon Hadfield, Jobert Atienza, and Sam Claiborne. Damon is also the host, and Max Scoville and Ryan McCaffrey serve as regular panelists. Technical direction is by Jobert Atienza, with technical production by Marian Franzen and Amir Rakib. Audio engineering is handled by Amir Rakib. Post-production editing is by Jobert Atienza, and graphic design is by Justin Vachon. Next Gen Console Watch is an IGN production and part of the Geek Media Network.